I know what you're thinking, just another button mash and action game from the Collective, but that's where you're wrong. Sure, the heart-pounding lightsaber combat grabs your attention, but it's the often overlooked door panel slicing simulator that keeps you coming back. Truly, this is where the fun begins. I came for the lightsabers, I stayed for the doors, I hate sand, but I love this game. So let's not keep the council waiting and just do it.
I can't lift it alone. I'm on it. Excellent shooting, Anakin. That's it!
The days of the Jedi are over.
Oh, I don't think so. So uncivilized.
What have I done?
You call this a fight? You can't beat me.
In honor of Revenge of the Sith's 20th anniversary, I decided to revisit the PS2 game, one of the last few titles developed by the Collective, and arguably their high point, before the tragic downfall that was the Da Vinci Code. I still remember the day I got the game. My parents actually postponed my 8th birthday by a day, so we could witness the final chapter of the legendary prequel trilogy on the big screen, and after watching things no 8-year-old probably should have seen,
My brother Anakin!
I was handed a copy of Revenge of the Sith on PS2 and asked if I'd like to play it with my younger brother.
I would certainly like to.
I know you would.
When I first popped the disc into my PS2, I was expecting something grand and thrilling. John Williams' high-energy action themes, maybe something similar to the classic Battlefront 2 menu music. Instead, the game opens with a bold yet unexpectedly somber track from Attack of the Clones' Return to Tatooine, setting a surprisingly serious tone from the start. It's a downbeat, almost mournful piece that sets the stage for the emotional weight and chaos waiting in the latter half of the story. I can't play the actual music in this video due to copyright, but I think this YouTube commenter summed it up perfectly. What is it about music like this that makes me feel sad, peaceful, happy, and powerful at the same time? Even without context provided from the film, you can feel all of that. And honestly, I agree. Looking back, I wouldn't change it for anything. If you want to hear it for yourself, I'll drop a 10-minute loop of the track in the description below.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
While doing my research, I was excited to discover a behind-the-scenes video of the making of the game. To my surprise, LucasArts and even George Lucas himself were involved, working closely with the developers to make sure the experience felt as complete and authentic as possible. They even brought many of the devs on set, but I'm not exactly sure what they were meant to take away from the overwhelming amount of blue and green screens. At the very least, they got to witness the masterfully choreographed lightsaber duels and emotionally charged performances up close.
We were actually on set in Sydney, just to soak it all in, and of course to be there the week that they filmed this totally exciting, emotionally packed final duel between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was awesome.
Their goal was clear, to deliver the most exciting and authentic lightsaber duels in a video game at that time. To achieve that, they brought in none other than Nick Gillard, the legendary stunt coordinator behind all the prequel fights.
It's one thing to watch reference footage of stuff happening. It's another thing to really feel it in your bones and to have the guy who really made it all up right there for you, teaching you the real intricacies and the little details that are going to come through into the final product.
And as if that wasn't enough Jedi involvement, it turns out Hayden Christensen was a gamer himself, and he worked directly with the animators, showing them exactly how he wanted Anakin's idle stance and opening attack to look like in the game.
There were times where Hayden literally goes, I want this to be my idle stance. And I want my fast opening attack to be this. And what do you say to that besides, okay? Because he just knows exactly what we're going for.
The lightsaber combat was clearly the centerpiece here, with the game's story staying tightly in sync with the movie, aside from a few key deviations. More on that later. For its time, it was probably the most visceral lightsaber experience you can get in 2005. Games like Jedi Outcast were certainly solid, but they didn't quite nail the speed and raw impact that Revenge of the Sith managed to deliver in its combat mechanics. Now, I'm no expert in this genre, but the more time you spend with it, the more intuitive it becomes. Eventually, you reach an almost meditative Zen-like state, while casually committing war crimes.
You won't kill me. It's not allowed for a Jedi Knight.
There's much you fail to understand.
As I played, memories of other games started resurfacing, particularly The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. Those games, like Revenge of the Sith, share a lot in common: a tight gameplay loop, point-based ranking systems, and a narrative that mirrors the films almost beat for beat, even pulling scenes straight from the movies. It's a style of game adaptation that feels like a relic of a bygone era. While Gandalf might wield a staff and dish out something resembling a wizardly force push, let's not get it twisted. He's not exactly tapping into the unlimited power you find in a galaxy far, far away. Speaking of which, let's take a closer look at the Force mechanics in Revenge of the Sith.
Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi.
The game features 6 core force abilities: push, grasp, lightsaber throw, stun, or lightning depending on the character, sprint, and force heal. Force push is fast and easy to use, and particularly useful for knocking enemies off ledges. But it wasn't my preferred choice. Too often it missed the target entirely, leaving me vulnerable to counterattacks. Force grasp, on the other hand, became a frequent part of my strategy. It locks onto enemies or objects instantly and gives you full control where to throw them, making it both effective and reliable. In fact, one of my favorite force grasp moves lets you yank an enemy toward you, leaving them suspended in midair just long enough for you to slice them apart before they can react. The lightsaber throw proved helpful in one-on-one encounters, but it came with a drawback. While your saber is midair, you're defenseless, especially against ranged attacks. As for force sprint, I barely used it, mostly because I kept forgetting it was available. And then there's force heal. Practical, sure, but visually, a bit odd. Your character locks up with a strained expression and stiff posture, looking less like a Jedi deep in meditation and more like a toddler with intense focus, attempting a very different kind of force push.
Jake, what you doing? Is it coming out okay?
The game also features action combos that incorporate force abilities. When you input the right button combination, each character unleashes their signature moves. If you want to see more, check out Nebulous Scholar's video showcasing all the force power moves, link in the description. You'll face a variety of enemy types throughout the Revenge of the Sith campaign, most of which you'll recognize from the movies. However, since this is a video game, the roster's been expanded with some original additions: B-1A Air Battle Droid, B-2 Grapple Droid, Clone Blaze Trooper, Clone Assassin, Jedi Brute, and the Crab Droid. While technically in the film, they're significantly larger and more imposing here. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these were the most memorable for me. Then there are the boss battles. I hesitate to call them Jedi battles since General Grievous isn't exactly a Jedi, but still, you square off against Count Dooku, General Grievous, Mace Windu, Ricardo Montalban, Sindralig, and of course, Anakin, which I'm sure is a surprise to no one. Most of these boss fights played out similarly, and I didn't find myself needing to change up my approach too much. That said, General Grievous stood out thanks to his uncivilized fighting style.
Here is where you meet your end, Kenobi.
We'll see about that.
Overall, the bosses were a fun challenge, and I was always curious to see how their in-game outcomes would differ from the film.
I've been looking forward to this.
Some of the most surprising changes came in how the game handled character deaths, often in ways that clearly aimed to avoid spoiling the movie. The first major change is Count Dooku's death. In the film, Dooku is disarmed at the wrists before being decapitated, but in the game, he's simply impaled, likely to preserve the game's teen rating. General Grievous's death is also different. Instead of Obi-Wan shooting him with his own blaster, one of the most iconic scenes of the movie, he's just impaled in the chest with a lightsaber. Sadly, Obi-Wan doesn't deliver his legendary line.
So uncivilized.
Then there's Mace Windu. In the game, he doesn't face off against Palpatine at all. Instead, he duels Anakin, only to get stabbed in the chest and kicked out of a window. It's a pretty dramatic rewrite of his fate.
What have I done?
One change I didn't even notice at first is in the final duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Instead of using the Battle of the Heroes music, the game instead plays Duel of the Fates from the Phantom Menace. This likely stems from the constraints of a tight production timeline, forcing the developers to rely on existing assets. It also helps to explain the use of Attack of the Clones music for the main menu.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
The developers also sprinkled in a few breaks from the lightsaber combat, giving players moments to man heavy cannons, take on large aircrafts, and more often than you'd expect, cut through an absurd number of doors and panels. Occasionally, you even get to channel your inner Qui-Gon Jinn with the classic molten lightsaber technique.
This is impossible!
These segments are admittedly a bit underwhelming, but they serve their purpose, giving players a breather between the more intense duels. That said, I'll give credit where it's due. There's one shooting section later in the game that genuinely stood out to me. You play as Darkside Anakin, obliterating a fleet of ships, and for whatever reason, that part just hit differently. Revenge of the Sith also has a handful of secrets tucked into each level, granting the player some helpful buffs. Frequently, you'll find them by destroying the environment. These perks include full health, replenished force meter, or a maxed out action meter, which makes racking up those masterful attack points a breeze. And at the end of each level, you'll find out how many secrets you found when all the experience points are being counted.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
And while we're at it, let's quickly talk about what you can spend your experience points on. You're given two categories to invest your points into: force powers and combat skills. Within those categories, you can specify what you want to enhance as you play the campaign. You likely won't max out everything on your first playthrough, but that's actually a good thing in my opinion, because it just makes the game more replayable. When you hop on for another session, you can max out the rest.
We do not grant you the rank of master.
One of the cool surprises Revenge of the Sith has to offer comes after the credits roll. Once you finish the main campaign, you unlock an alternative ending, where you play as Anakin instead of Obi-Wan during their final duel. In this what-if scenario, Obi-Wan truly does underestimate Anakin's power, and gets literally backstabbed. And it's a clever twist, both physically and symbolically, marking the ultimate betrayal of their long friendship. But it doesn't end there. After defeating Obi-Wan, Anakin is praised by the Emperor.
Excellent work, my apprentice. Your new weapon, Lord Vader.
For about 30 seconds before Anakin turns on him too, and declares himself the new Emperor.
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
As a reward for completing this alternate ending, the game unlocks a set of bonus levels that add more replay value. These additional levels let you step into the boots of new playable characters. In this bonus content, you can fight as a Magna Guard, slice through enemies as General Grievous, fight as Yoda during Order 66, bonus level playing as Anakin, and even a duel as Darth Vader against Old Ben Kenobi. Admittedly, these extras are short and feel like deleted scenes, but they're enjoyable nonetheless. And if you're looking for more multiplayer action, there's co-op mode. Select missions can be tackled with a second player, working together to defeat waves of enemies. It's local multiplayer only, very on brand for a 2005 PS2 game, but still a great way to enjoy the game with a friend. Then there's duel mode, the game's 1v1 versus mode. It plays like a mini Star Wars fighting game where you pick from a decent sized roster and battle it out in lightsaber duels. It's a simple addition, but it's a great way to squeeze even more Star Wars out of a disc after the campaign. Interestingly, I found a YouTube channel that runs Revenge of the Sith duel tournaments, link below. Watching those matches really highlights how much depth and lasting appeal the game still has.
Chief has to make up 2 more rounds if he wants to go on to a final match to win it. Again, another perfect block. He could take it. Another perfect block. That's the finish. Dakist Inferno, our first ever champion.
Oh, and before I forget, there's one more thing that deserves a shout out. The concept art gallery you unlock after finishing the game. As someone who loves art, and used to create a lot myself, I always appreciate when games offer a behind the scenes look at their creative process. Each piece is accompanied by a short description that sheds light on the design choices and inspirations behind it. One piece that really stood out shows Anakin and Obi-Wan cutting a massive hole in the floor to escape a swarm of droids early in the story. According to the description, that moment was actually intended for the film, but it was ultimately scrapped, yet somehow, it found new life in the game. Now, up to this point, there's been a fair bit of praise, but it's only fair to acknowledge that Revenge of the Sith had some major missed opportunities that could have elevated it from a good game to a truly great one. For starters, like the negotiations, the campaign was short, clocking in at around 5 hours, and while the bonus content helps, it still leaves you wanting more. But imagine if they had gone a step further and added a few extra set pieces or playable moments from the film. Here are a few ideas that come to mind. Idea 1, a playable flying sequence at the start of the game, just like the opening of the movie. It could have added a bit of variety and been a great way to kick things off. Idea 2, a chase scene where Obi-Wan pursues General Grievous on Boga. It's such a cinematic moment in the movie, and it would have been awesome to experience that in game. Idea 3, Yoda versus the Emperor. I get why they might have let this out, probably to avoid spoiling the film, but come on, who wouldn't want to throw Senate pods across the room as Yoda? And idea 4, while we're dreaming, it would have been great to have Yoda and the Emperor as playable characters in duel mode. It feels like a natural fit and would have added even more variety to the roster. Just 1 or 2 of these additions could have given the game a bit more depth and replay value, but hey, maybe in a remaster someday.
I sense it too.
In the meantime, if you're still craving more Revenge of the Sith content, the handheld versions offer a different take on the game, shaped by the limitations and strength of their respective hardware. Both the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS versions reimagine the story as a 2.5D side-scrolling beat-em-up. You can play as either Obi-Wan or Anakin and battle through a dozen levels filled with enemies and environmental hazards like laser traps and missile launchers. Between the two, the DS version adds a little more to the mix. It features 3D starfighter missions that make use of the touchscreen, letting players manage shields, track radar, and monitor scores during space battles, bringing a bit of gameplay variety to the handheld experience. And that pretty much wraps it up for Revenge of the Sith on PS2. It's one of the rare tie-in games that actually holds up, with solid combat, some fun extras, and just enough love for the source material to make it memorable. Sure, it's got flaws and a few missed opportunities, but for a game released before the movie even hit theaters, it's honestly impressive how much they got right. The alternate ending, bonus missions, duel mode, co-op, there's a lot more here than you'd expect from a licensed title. And even the handheld versions tried something different, which is kind of cool in its own way. Whether you're revisiting it out of nostalgia or checking it out for the first time, it's a slice of Star Wars gaming history that's worth looking back on. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and drop a comment about your favorite mission or duel. And if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.